That was strange. Strange things happened. So I set up this stream yesterday, and then today I came back to it. There is a little tab that allows me to modify these streams, and there was nothing there, and I thought that's strange. I started a new stream and said live streaming is not available right now. I got out of that screen. I went back to my editing screen, and there was the stream I created yesterday. It's a miracle. But anyway, we're here now, aren't we? Hello, hello. How are we doing all today? How are we all doing today? How all are we doing today? All are we doing today? I'm slowly dosing on some caffeine. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Nice to see you all. We have someone from Russia, we have someone from Singapore, someone from Hong Kong, we have someone from Germany. So, very nice. Yes, your pen has left Canada, hasn't it? I was tracking it this morning. The last pen I received from the United States took 8 weeks to get here. So I'm very surprised that... actually, it says on my end that your pen has arrived in the US already. But that's Canada Post. I don't know what USPS says. USPS says inbound into customs. Processed through facility, San Francisco. So who knows? I would be very interested to see if that actually makes it the date they gave me. But, you know, we will see. Anyway. Oh, there's giant consternation. No, people, this is not a Sunday thing. This is just a thing. So theoretically, we have 7 days in a week, so I could do this 7 days in a week, but I can't do it on Sunday. So there are two options. Either we do it on Saturday, or we don't do it. It's simple. So I thought in this instance, it might be better to do it on Saturday, which is why we're doing this now. I announced this on Instagram. All these things are announced. Everything is explained there. What else do we have? What do you think about Ranga pens by performance-wise? I've used the one Ranga pen with the Urushi that I recently got, that you know that I got, but sorry, should have opened that before. I'm trying to remember if that's the only Ranga pen I've ever used. But this is good. I mean, it has a Bock nib. It's a well-made pen. So I like it so far. Good performance, I would say. Any other expensive hobbies apart from pens? Well, I don't really think so. I don't really collect anything or something that would cost a lot of money. So no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. When you go into the woods, what pen and paper or notebook do you bring with you? Typically nothing. Typically nothing, actually. Any experience with Appelboom nib tuning? Not directly. I do know Annabelle, and I have no doubts that she will do a good job, but I haven't personally experienced it. Yeah. I'm already waiting 4 weeks, something from Texas. Yeah, exactly. It's, for some reason, I have the feeling mail is picking up a bit, but there is still, still not perfect. But I mean, given that there is a pandemic, I'm I'm shocked that there even is mail delivery. So I mean, I'm not complaining, but we all know what it's like when you're eagerly awaiting something to arrive. Then it can get very exciting. So, do you have a preference between Jowo or Bock? I have a mild preference for Jowo nibs for the simple reason that I've had some Bock nibs that I found quite dry. And I remember when Twisby went from, I think, Schmidt to Bock and then from Bock to Jowo, and every time I felt the wetness increased a bit. Enjoying a somewhat wetter pen, I enjoy Jowo more, which is not to say there's no such thing as a dry Jowo nib. You can also have a dry Jowo nib. You can also have a wet Bock nib. But in general, I would say that's kind of my preference. Both are good then. Opinions on classic pens, dual fold and other models apart from their LB series? No, because I haven't tried them. They are, I mean, they're all good pens, but those dual fold models are easily like $15,000 plus, right? So I haven't experienced a lot of those. Good evening from India. Good evening back. I do enjoy the international aspects of this audience. There's a lot of different countries, which is fun. Just got an Emperor. Any tips for cleaning? No, not really, because it's kind of a pain. So I use a syringe and I just flush water. I undo the section. I flush water into the barrel, take it out a couple times, and I try to run water through the section. And I'm always a bit careful with that. It also makes me a bit nervous too, because also a bit of silicone grease on the threads that I don't want to have in the section, in the feed. So it's hard, but that's pretty much what I do. On mine, the nib and feed do pull out, but I'm always hesitant to do that because I don't want to disrupt the setting. But that's pretty much it. So that's how I do it. It's not an easy pen to clean because you can't run water through it with a mechanism, right? There's no converter, there's no piston, so it's really a matter of just flushing it through. I'm an American who is just trying out tea. Any recommendations for loose leaf tea for a beginner? Yes, absolutely. You have to develop a flavor for what you like a taste, because there are a lot of different flavors of tea. So certain ones, I think of something like Lapsang, for example, is very smoky. That when you pour that smells like a campfire. I'm not kidding. And some people really like that, and some people don't. And you can also flush the leaves a bit so they don't have that strong flavor, but that's a very smoky flavor. I like Assam tea, and I think that's just a strain, right? A strain of tea. Assam, ASSAM, it's just named after, it's actually a strain of the tea plant, which is fairly dark and is very malty. And if you've ever had something like an English breakfast tea, then it is likely that there was some Assam in that, because it's in the UK, it's often had with milk and sugar. I drink it straight. I really like it, but it's not for everyone because it has that malty flavor, which is, this sounds like a strange contradiction, but like a dark flavor. It's a very intense dark flavor. I wouldn't call it bitter unless you oversteep it, but there's that. A lighter tea, a more refined tea, is Darjeeling. And pretty much any Darjeeling you can find loose leaf will be very, very nice. So there is also that option. You can also look for blends of tea. So this is like, you could have this type of Darjeeling straight up, or this type of Assam, or this type of oolong, or whatever. But there are blends. So as I said, English breakfast is a tea that a lot of people are familiar with because you get this in a lot of places. Starbucks has an English breakfast tea. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure they do. So you're kind of familiar with that flavor. Now, there's no one holy blend of this is English breakfast, but it's typically a couple different teas together. But you kind of know that flavor. It's not too strong. It's not overwhelming. So if you can find something like that as a blend in loose leaf, then first of all, you will notice how much more intense the flavors are in loose leaf versus tea dust that you find in bags. It's actually called tea dust. It's pretty disgusting when you think about it. But anyway, that's what I would do. Go for something like an English breakfast or maybe an Irish breakfast. That's one of my favorites. Scottish breakfast is nice, but you can't always get that. English breakfast, Irish breakfast are kind of evergreens. A lot of tea shops have those. That's where I would start. And then see what you like. You have to sample because there are so many different flavors. I hope that helps. That really woke me up, this discussion. Thank you. What else? What is your favorite pen to hold in your hand while you are teaching? You know, that's a good question. The answer is none. And the reasoning for that is that I'm known to drop things. So when I get excited, I think I sort of loosen my grip because I'm not paying attention. And then whiteboard markers or a PowerPoint, like a presenter, they call it, right? There's like a little PowerPoint remote that has dropped many times. I don't have it here, which is a shame. I should show you next time. My PowerPoint remote has a green laser, which I love because it's very visible. It's more visible than a red laser. But it has a little sort of lens in front of it, a little plastic cover. It's not actually a lens, that's just a plastic cover, I think. But I've dropped that thing so many times that it's no longer a bullet. It's no longer a round projection. It looks like almost like a butterfly. I should probably replace that at some point. Anyway, there is that. So I tend not to hold pens as I teach. Is there a difference between Sailor 1911 large and Pro Gear, especially asking about the nibs? What is your opinion about the Sailor 21 karat nibs? I'll do the last bit first. I love the Sailor 21 karat nibs, and yes, there is a difference between a 1911 large and a Pro Gear because a Pro Gear is a flat top. I don't have one, so I can't show you, but it's a flat top pen, whereas a 1911 has rounded ends. So it is a difference in looks. But I mean, performance is very similar. And then there is the Realo, and the Realo has a piston, so that's a difference in functionality. Then you can have a Pro Gear Realo and a 1911 Realo, although the 1911 Realo, yeah, well, they exist. There even was a King of Pen Realo, which is very rare and sought after because it's a piston-filled King of Pen, but those you don't find so often. Any upcoming pens you're looking forward to? Yeah, I read on this is the problem. I read on the Classic Pens website that there is now an LB8, which I'm kind of fascinated by. So I'm just, I'm not saying I'm going to get it, but I would like to see it because it looked kind of neat. Hello from Cairo in Egypt. Hello, thank you. Again, a lot of countries, really neat. I sent my new Visconti Homo Sapiens Crystal Dream pen with a very fine medium, yes, nib to the US distributor. They told me the nib may have been created as a pilot test for Europe, but was not authorized for the US. That is peculiar, but interesting. Yeah, it's, I've said this before, like you buy an Italian pen, then you play Italian roulette. You get a nib that may or may not write. You get a nib that may be the grade that is stamped on it, or it may not be. It's just part of the game, right? How do you store all your pens, and how often do you rotate them for daily use? I rotate them when they're empty, so I can't say every 3 days or something. Like, I don't have that. I try to only have a couple of pens inked up at a time. Right now, have I been a good boy? Yes, I only have 4 inked up because I have a 4-pen case. There is no 4 pens in that. I know that. But there is a 4th one out there. I store my pens in this. That's it. It's just a 40-pen case. And some in this because they're too big. Beyond that, there is nothing. So it's very simple. I don't have display cases, that kind of stuff. I don't. Could you pull out the nib from an Aero Volute? I want to say yes. I'm pretty sure I did. A lot of the diplomats. Just be careful. I'm pretty sure it pulls out. Yeah. What else do we have? You're now getting a US authorized medium nib. That is That's really peculiar, but why not? I look forward to hearing how it writes. On a blind test, most people can't tell the difference between gold and steel nib. No, I agree. Yeah. It's I mean, it depends on how the nibs are ground, right? You can grind a gold nib terribly. You can grind a steel nib terribly. You can't even say a gold nib is always springier, because I've had very rigid gold nibs that just didn't bounce at all. And I've also had very springy steel nibs. So, yeah, I would be inclined to agree. Assam or Darjeeling, everything else is too wimpy. Yes. Yeah, I agree, for me too. But, you know, yeah, I thought it was Stamna, but it was just a neighbor. What's up with those skeletons? Any plans for making an exclusive video on them? Well, they're just here for the teaching purposes, but I could. The skeleton, I'm just looking at other models I have there. That skeleton is used mainly to show the spinal nerves, which that's a really, how do I put that? It's a very massive object to have just to show where spinal nerves come out. But that's the story. Is it unadvisable to use the bladder things that come with the parallel to clean other pens? Tried with Cavalier and seemed to work because the pen actually writes now. I see absolutely no reason why that would be an issue. You would only probably be able to fit them in pilot pens because they have that strange, that's not the nipple, but the strange opening. Like, that's just the proprietary pilot format. But having said that, no. And there's another thing. There's a really strange, I don't know if it's still there, but the parallels used to come with a warning that said that you were not supposed to use those things to ink up a pen. Like, you can't use them as a converter. There's no reason for that either. I've done that. They make converters that are just like that, and then they're converters. So it doesn't make sense. I've used those as converters. It works perfectly fine. So I really don't understand what their deal was with that. Maybe with specific inks because it's rubber, but again, Pilot makes converters that are exactly like that. So nothing makes sense anymore. That's just the new motto of the world. Assam is my home state. That's awesome. Yeah, I know, I do like it. That's my favorite tea, actually. Right now, I'm having a loose leaf, whole leaf, second flush Assam, which is really good. Really, really good. Grail swords or katana that you intend to buy in the future? Not really, because I've kind of given up on the swords. Not for any specific reason, but I just, when we moved from the Netherlands to Canada, I didn't feel like bringing them all. And then you just, I didn't really revitalize that interest, although it was interesting. All teas are the same plant, yeah, but there are different strains of that plant. Darjeeling is Camellia sinensis, and Assam is Camellia sinensis assamica. What else do we have? Yes, nice. Is this life about Indian tea plantations? Yes, it is in a way, isn't it? I'm a big fan of English breakfast. Yeah, I like English breakfast too. It's if you like English breakfast, if you have not tried, if you like English breakfast and you have not tried it, you can also try the Irish breakfast, because that typically has some Assam components in it, and that's a little stronger if you like that. But I mean, you have to like that. But if you do, then that's a good one. And Scottish breakfast, again, that one can be a little bit harder to get. But it's also kind of fun. And again, there's no fixed recipes for these things, so it depends a bit on where you get it. But there's at Glenn's Tea here in Red Deer, they do a Scottish breakfast that is almost a little I would almost say a little floral, which I typically don't like, but in that mix, it works very well. Oh, nice. Not only is this person from Assam, but his wife is from Darjeeling, so that's a cute combination. All right, I have a new Homo sapiens lava with the new gold 18-karat medium nib. It's great, but sometimes it puts a drop of ink on my paper. Have you heard about that? Yeah, it sounds like it's burping ink. If that happens as you are writing, I wonder if the pen is getting relatively dry, so empty. And then you may just want to fill it up so that there's no air bubble. If that is not the issue, I wouldn't really expect it, but then I would wonder if the nib and the feed are pushed in all the way into the back into the nib collar. If they're not, because if they stick out, one or the other or both stick out a bit, then sometimes the ink kind of leaks out as well. But be careful when you check that, because you don't want to bend anything or push anything out of shape, right? What is the profit line of pens from Sailor? Yeah, I always get confused by this, but I think that's just different names for the same pens. So there's the King of Pen in the West. I want to say it's called the King Profit in Japan, but I could be wrong. Again, I always get confused over this because we're so used to 1911, King of Pen, those things. That's it. I didn't think it was a whole separate line of pens or something. I thought it was just different names for the same pens, but I could be wrong. I'm sure that someone can correct me in the comments. What are your thoughts on the study of cryptozoology, such as Sasquatch and such? Well, it's very interesting. I think it appeals to a sense that we have that there is all kinds of mysterious things out there. The problem lies that there is, as far as I know, never been any true actual evidence for all of these kinds of cryptids. Now, theoretically, it's possible because they just elude us all the time. It's also possible they just don't exist, and that all of this is part myth, part legend, part founded in just people being excited, part hoax as well. So, it's always interesting. And again, I think it appeals to a sense that we have that there's something out there, and there's a Loch Ness monster and that kind of stuff. But I also, yeah, that's my issue. Show me the evidence. Show me the evidence and we will talk. But once there's evidence, it's not a cryptid anymore, is it? So it's confusing. Hello from Scotland. Hello back. I really like Captain Marvel. I haven't seen it. There's a lot on my list. My issue with these superhero movies is that there are so many, but also that I kind of liked when they were relatively simple and straightforward. Like I enjoyed the first Iron Man movie. I thought it was nice and entertaining. But then it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you get the Avengers, and then you have 500 superheroes doing all, like it's too much. I lose interest when they try to stuff in so many characters that I don't. To me, that this is weird, but to me that distracts from the story. It's like, okay, now the story is not that great to begin with, but then we also have 500 superheroes and 500 villains, and I don't know what's going on anymore. It might also have helped if I would have actually read the comics, which I haven't. But like, I can't tell them all apart. That's I think that's the issue I have. Like, I don't know who's who anymore, and that doesn't make sense to me anymore. And then we just fire up Star Wars again. Now, do you have an ETA on the new parallel review? Do I have a new parallel review? That's my phone. Oh, here it is. I have a parallel review coming up. Veritas est. but that's a special parallel. Parallel with ruling pen modification from the Toronto Pen Company. That's up August 10th. I think that's all I had planned as parallels go. We did a parallel review a long time ago. Long time. All right. Nice. He would enjoy. He would like Deadpool better, I guess. You know, I'll be honest. I kind of enjoyed Deadpool. I recently watched the second one, and it's incredibly crude humor, but that's part of the point of that. And I that one, I will be honest, that one did entertain me. Yeah, because it's just, I don't know, really weird humor, but that did appeal to me. I'm the same when I lecture, even walks on them. Yeah, you see, that's what happens to me too. I once heard a story that I'll just share with you because I find it comical, although it is tragic. Once upon a time, there was a great professor who was receiving an award for his entire career, like all the work he had done. It was back in the day when there were actual slides in, rotating, we call that cylinder. So actual physical slides. And he was giving this presentation, an address for a giant audience at a conference. And he found out that the slides were in that, we call it a carousel. I don't know if that's the actual term for it, but like that cylinder for all the slides, they're in there in the wrong order. So there was this poor graduate student who was going through the slides whenever he gave a signal. And this professor got very angry and said, "You're trying to sabotage me." The graduate student is panicking because the slides are in the wrong order. So he takes out, shaking hands, that cylinder and tries to put the slides back in, but then he drops them and all the slides are on the floor. So now the professor is really annoyed, but he has overhead sheets. So he takes this big stack of overhead sheets, puts it on the desk, starts to put them on the projector. And then he makes a dramatic motion with his arm. And he knocks all the overhead sheets, the transparent sheets, on the ground. So now he has nothing. So he, in an attempt to salvage what he can, he puts down his microphone on the floor, tries to pick up these overhead transparents, and he stands on the microphone and it breaks. So now he has no visual aids. He has no audio that's discernible. It sounds like a nightmare. I was told this story by a professor. I don't know if it's actually true. But it was something along the lines of, you think that presentation was difficult? I always enjoyed that. All right. About how many pens do you have? About what fits in here. I'm going to go with about 30. What's your preference, steel or gold nib? I think that really depends on the pen, because I've had some steel nibbed pens with great nibs that performed beautifully. And I've also had some gold nib pens that perform beautifully. So I really think it depends on how the nib is ground, how it's shaped, and that can make a big difference. So I wouldn't necessarily say all gold nibs are always better. It depends a bit on what you want to. Also had some titanium nibs that were great. So, yeah. What is your grail pen? Well, I don't know if I have one anymore, but I will say I'm pretty fond of my new LB6. It's pretty sweet. Wouldn't it be sensible to improve the own nib tuning skills as a normal part of the fountain pen hobby, because you can't rely on the work of the companies? Well, that's why you have nibmeisters who have done that, and you pay them. I mean, you can do it yourself. There are certain things you can do yourself, but you have to be willing to invest that time. And tuning a nib properly is not as easy as it seems. You really do have to put in a lot of hours to really learn the techniques learn all the ins and outs, and you can. You absolutely can, but you have to be willing to do that. It's not a matter if you sit down. I'm not saying that you say, I'm just saying in general. It's not a matter if you sit down with a nib and you look at it and you grind a bit and it's fine. It's not that easy. It's much more involved. I just happen to have, if I'm not mistaken, but let me double check that as we go. I have a video coming up on Nibmeisters, yes, which is going up on Monday. Because I got a lot of questions, including in these streams, about Nibmeisters and what they do and how they do it and why they do it and who they are and how you get to them. So I've tried to answer all those questions. And I think it's almost, I won't say it's almost half an hour or something, that video. It was much longer than I anticipated. But in any case, it's there. Graf und Faber-Castell in your personal pen series? No, I have no Graf and Faber-Castells. I have no Faber-Castells. What is your favorite nib size and style? Probably any favorite brands. I don't know if I have one favorite nib. I mean, I would have said a number of years ago that it would be a broad nib, but I have also used a number of finer nibs recently. And it turns out that a good fine nib is really not that bad. So I don't know if I have one type of nib that is my absolutely favorite nib that I would say, well, it has to be a 14 karat broad nib. I don't think I have that. Which is not to say that I typically gravitate towards broader nibs because they have a bit more tipping material, there's more to polish, they often are a bit smoother than very fine nibs. But a good fine nib, like I was using this week again, I was using this, the Omas Paragon, Grand Paragon, which has a fine nib, 18K fine nib. It's a really pleasant nib and one that I really enjoy using. So I like a fine nib too. Any specific brands, like favorite brands? I don't know. I'm at a state now where I buy a pen when I like it, and I don't necessarily seek out very specific brands that I always need to have the latest of them or something. That I don't think so. Where's Aziza? In Toronto. Do you think leaning towards the bigger and longer pens that write broader is a Freudian thing? No, I don't think so. I think, I mean, it could be, but I don't really think so. I think it is more a matter of people just sometimes like larger pens. If you have larger hands, then that's a convenient thing. Like, I mean, what do we have? This is, I mean, it happens to be Boba Fett, but I mean, it is the Cross Townsend. I only have this because it's Boba Fett. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this because this is too thin for me. This is uncomfortable for my hands. Like that doesn't work for me. Which is not to say that it always has to be a massive pen. I mean, I like that pen. I also have this, right? The Enzo XS Pocket. This is a pocket pen, so by definition, it's supposed to be smaller, and it is. But I find that a very comfortable pen. But if I have the choice between a larger pen and a smaller pen, then I will buy a larger pen, which I find more comfortable. I have never thought to myself, well, this must be a Freudian thing that you buy all these big pens. I really don't think so. For me, it's a matter of comfort. It's that simple. Have been watching you from 2011. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're coming up. January 2021 is going to be 10 years. It's all emotional, isn't it? Anyway, I should probably do something special on that. I should figure out what my original uploading day was. It was somewhere in January 2011, I remember. Anyway, thank you for your continued viewership because I really appreciate it. And yeah, we've come a long, long way together. Hello from Houston. I said that on purpose because of the way you put it. Is that a Yeti mug? Yes, that is a Yeti mug. It has a name. It could be their Rambler. It's big, but this is how I self-administer my tea. Did you get a chance to check out the history writing series on YouTube? Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. It's nice. It's well done. It's that was cool. Yeah. I think you expressed a liking of a blue-white swirl material on your Leonardo Momento Zero Blue Positano. Do you know, is it the same material used in the Montegrappa Amadeo Modigliani pen? I do not know if it's the same as the Montegrappa Amadeo Modigliani pen. Amadeo Modigliani. I'm looking it up right now. It is just a resin. So it's possible that it is, because I've seen this resin usually under the name Capri. No, it's no. Well, no, it looks different to me. This looks darker, like a darker shade. It looks like a darker blue, because the one I have is much lighter. I've seen this as Capri, material as Capri. There was an ASC Bologna Extra in this material, which I think was exclusive to Italian pens, but I could be wrong. I am pretty sure there's a Santini in this material. But I want to say, I'm going by one picture. I want to say that this looks lighter to me than that Montegrappa acrylic. I really like it, though. It's a very pretty acrylic, this. I actually didn't know about the differences in strain and have been misinformed. Thank you for educating me. Yeah, I only know because I have been educated on that. But so, yes, so the Camellia sinensis is strain of tea plant that gives smaller leaves. This is a live tea stream now anyway, so we'll go further down this rabbit hole. Camellia sinensis. Smaller tea leaves. That's Darjeeling. Smaller leaves. Interesting flavor because the leaves are smaller, so you can put them whole in your tea as you steep it. They unfurl, and that gives it a very complicated flavor profile, which a lot of people like. I'm just a simple man, so I like Assam, Camellia sinensis assamica, which has a bigger leaf. It's a bigger leaf, and of course I have my strainer there, so I can't show you, but they're like about this size, bigger, and that's why I think I'm kind of half speculating here. That's why I think often those are cut up, because they're bigger. So if you buy a loose leaf Assam, you get very big leaves, which I love. But I always get the feeling that Darjeeling is a bit more loved, it's a bit more exclusive, and it's a bit, again, more refined flavor profile. But Assam for me is, that's my favorite. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. So thank you. I'm glad now you know. But I only know because I was taught. What is the proper name of your home country? Netherlands or the Netherlands? No, it's Nederland in Dutch. But the anglicized version is the Netherlands. And officially, the should also be capitalized, which is interesting. So it can't be the minuscule Netherlands, has to be the Netherlands. And then there is the confusing thing, because then there is Holland. But Holland is just, the Netherlands now has 12 provinces, used to have 7. One province was created artificially by basically draining seawater. That's what Dutch people do. But anyway, back in the day, there was the province of Holland. So Holland, right? And now you still have 2 provinces, North and South Holland. But strictly speaking, those are just provinces. Then provinces had different dialects, and the Hollandish dialect is that's where, those were the richest of the provinces. So those kind of won out, and that's why everyone in the country started to speak Hollandish, hence Holland. But then in English, that's become Dutch. Now, how the hell you get from Hollandish to Dutch, I don't know, but that's etymology I have to look up one day. It's all the same. The Netherlands and Holland both works, but what I'm trying to say is the Netherlands is the official term, so my passport would say the Netherlands and not Holland, because officially speaking, Holland is not a country. Just people say that, but again, that's only 2 out of 12 provinces actually have Holland in the name. confusing. Have I lost you yet? Okay. Then there is Denmark. That's a different country. I only say this because sometimes there's confusion and people think that the Danish are the Dutch. Well, this is what you get when you name the language Dutch, where Dutch is not the name of the country. It's very confusing, but this is a completely different country. It's a few thousand kilometers, if I remember correctly, up north. That's completely different, separated by a sea too. They're not even connected. Like the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, they're connected. But Denmark is no. That's like saying Mexico is part of Canada. No. I'm not saying you said that. I'm just saying now I'm in this Hup Holland Hup mode, But it was an interesting question. Thank you. I remember in your earlier videos when your background used to be a huge wall of pens, inks, and notebooks and whole different writing materials. What happened to that? It still exists, but it's in a different province. I moved. What are good fountain pens for lefties? Yeah. Typically, I would say something with a finer nib or with a drier nib, simply because then you don't smudge your ink. But then it also depends on whether you're an overwriter or an underwriter, right? But something that's dry will dry faster and there's less smudging, but you can also use a drier ink. I did a video once with my friend Sinister Peter, who is left-handed, and he explained some of these things. So if you're very interested in that, look that up. Left-handed writing. I forget what the title is though, but I'm sure that if you look at my website, there should be an index, and otherwise, if you do a YouTube search for SBREBROWN left-handed writing or something, you will find it. I thought it was very interesting because a lot of people ask me that, and I can't really answer because I'm right-handed. So it's hard for me, because I don't have those issues, right, with the smudging and that stuff. What you can also do is do what Leonardo da Vinci did. He was left-handed. He wrote with his left hand, but he wrote every letter mirrored. So basically turned a B and a D, right? And he wrote from right to left, so he never smudged it. So it's very hard to read. Look at his manuscripts. It's super cool because it's like the writing is flipped and from right to left. So you kind of need to put it in a mirror to read it. It's super cool. Only Leonardo would come up with something like that. Hello from Trinidad and Tobago. Can I point out at this specific point in time that I wouldn't mind some doubles right now? Don't send me doubles because they won't make it through the mail. Roti. Curry chicken. I'm really hungry now. Thank you for bringing up Trinidad and Tobago. And let me compliment you and your cuisine because it's amazing. Scottish breakfast pairs well with smoked kipper. True. And maybe a shot of Scotch whiskey from your Visconti speakeasy to start the day. Yes, that would. Now, I personally don't drink, but yeah, that would be a proper combination. Profit is the Japanese name for the 1911 line. Thank you. You see that I did mess it up. I appreciate it. Yeah, 1911. Okay. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. This is what I mean. I always get confused. So thanks. Dream holiday, vacation destiny, or activity? It depends a bit. I like being in a sort of forested or mountainous area because I like walking around in nature, but I also like an interesting city where there's interesting things to do. I also like museums, architecture, these kinds of things. So it depends a bit on what I'm in the mood for. Sometimes you can combine the two in some countries, and that's always a lot of fun. If Noodlers and Fountain Pen Revolution can source ebonite for a $20 pen, other companies owe us better writing experience for regular price. Yes, you should write them a letter. But I agree, and I think that some companies are a bit remiss to not use ebonite feeds, because it can definitely make a difference in your writing. Yeah. Hello? Views on Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club. We're talking about the movie? If we're talking about the movie, I haven't seen it. It's still on my list. There's a couple. Fight Club is one. Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels is one. I recently watched The Gentleman, and I really like that. That was good. So I feel these movies are that style, right? Has the same director. Anyway, check it out. I'll report back on this. Did you ever like school or university? High school I found very interesting. I think that got better in later years, but especially the early years I found quite difficult. You would never have guessed if you look at me or consider what I do, but I'm not a very sporty, popular person. I know it's hard to believe, right? So that was initially I found that difficult the first years. Later years got a little better, got more friends, and that makes a difference. University I found absolutely amazing. And even though it's very interesting, I just think for 1 second. Although for my bachelor's and master's, there is no one that I studied with that I'm still in touch with. So I cannot say I've made friends in those years that I'm in touch with. But being at a university and learning and studying and interacting with professors and doing research stuff, that I found very interesting and very, very intellectually stimulating. It's been a very good experience. Yeah. Do you still own a Platinum Izumo? No. I don't. I sold it. Is your university opening for live face-to-face course September, or are you teaching e-learning? No, we're doing everything online for fall, except for some cases where that is impossible. Like, for example, it's kind of a polytechnic, so we have all kinds of departments. We also have trades and carpentry and welding, and we also have nursing and such. There's certain things you cannot teach online. I mean, I would not feel very comfortable if I would be in a hospital bed and a nurse would come over and would say, I'm going to put this catheter into you, and he or she would have learned that entirely online. Like, this is not a criticism on my college, but like, this is not possible. You cannot learn. These are skills that you cannot learn online. You have to do it. You have to practice on a model. You have to practice on a real person. So I think it was the correct decision. So those kinds of practicals, those kinds of labs will take place, as I understand it, but with smaller groups, with masking protocols, with social distancing, these kinds of things, or physical distancing. But I don't teach those kinds of things. So for me, my teaching, that will be online, and that's pretty much it. It's all online. And with psychology, you can do that. I do have a section of brain and behavior where I always like to show anatomical models. Like this. 1 second. I like to show these things so you can actually, because some things are very confusing. If you've ever asked yourself where the insula is, because insula is always weird. It works, for example, insula does something with taste, but also with disgust. It's right there, right? Or here. It's right there. But it's kind of hard to see that in a two-dimensional picture, as I'm sure you'll understand, because a two-dimensional picture would look something like this, and then where is it, right? On a three-dimensional model, you can see exactly where it is. It's because it's right there, right? Now, if I'm going to do this as I'm doing it with you now, then it's, on the one hand, it's a little difficult online, but on the other hand, I can now hold it up close to the camera, as opposed to you sit in the back of the classroom and it's like, oh, here's the insula, right? So I still think there may be some benefits. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be online for me. Hallelujah, brain. Okay. I'm going to very carefully scroll. I just received my final pen with a posting nib. I now have every nib I want and can find under $100, yet the urge to accumulate remains. Now I'm at risk of purchasing pens for aesthetics. Well, that can be fun, but you can also, if you feel that need, you can also do what some people do and say, I will own X pens, and if one comes in, another has to come out. Like that happens, or go out, sorry. So that's what Matt Armstrong does, right? Like he has a certain number of pens, and if he buys another one, he has to sell another one. Well, that's an option. But no, it's nice. Congratulations. You have what you want. How many times have you heard someone say, if I had his money, I could do things my way? But little do they know, it's so hard to find. 1 man in 10 with a satisfied mind. The timeless wisdom of Johnny Cash. Yes, Kiara. Did he not move from the Netherlands to Canada? Or maybe the wall was in Toronto. He's in Red Deer now. That is correct. The wall actually is in Oshawa, 60 kilometers east of Toronto. That is true. And the wall remains. But I do not, because I did indeed move to Red Deer. You're absolutely right. It's fun, isn't it? Mystery. An adventure. I keep seeing weird sort of light things in my ceiling. I wonder if that's cars. Are there cars? Weird. I don't know if you see it too. I see it. It's weird. Okay. Greetings from Uruguay. Nice. Greetings back. Again, we have a lot of different countries, which is really neat. I find that really neat. What is your opinion on the pens that are inspired by a particular model, such as the Lotus Vikrant, or others that are copies of pens, such as the Wingsung model, which is a clone of the A23? I have mentioned this in videos too, and I always find this very difficult, because I think there are two basic ways to look at this. The biggest problem is, I think, when a company reproduces a pen down to the last details and tries to pass it off as an original. And this happens, for example, in the case of Montblanc. Then you are selling counterfeit products, and counterfeits, that's an issue, because then you're ripping someone off on purpose. You're trying to sell something as an original while it's not. That, I think, is never acceptable. Then there are situations where a company, I happen to have one here. This is a Wingsung. For all intents and purposes, custom A23. It has all the features, including the filling mechanism. But it's not a Pilot Custom A23. It's a Wingsung 699. Is that true? Wingsung something. 699. Yes, fortunately. I sometimes mix up the numbers. Now, this is sold as a Wingsung 699. This is not sold as a Pilot Custom A23. So they're not trying to pass it off as a Pilot, which I think is a little better. Does this feel a little cheap? Yeah, it feels a bit plasticky. I know it's plastic, but you may know what I mean. Like it's a bit plastic. It feels very light, feels a bit more fragile than the A23s do, to me at least. If you were to blindfold me and give me two, I don't know if I'll be able to tell the difference. Maybe it's psychosomatic. It seems like it feels that way. Anyway, if you don't try to pass it off as an A23, then I have these two viewpoints. On the one hand, you could also try to come up with something yourself, as opposed to blatantly copying every aspect of a certain pen. That's one way to look at it. Like, why would you even copy something? Why do you not use your own creativity to come up with something else? Maybe a filling system like this, but in a different model of pen. The other way to look at it is, but an A23 is like what, $100? And this is 20. So if they can do it for 20, you don't get the gold nib. But if they can do it for 20, why the difference in price, right? Why would Pilot not then what's their markup? Now again, it has a gold nib, it's a little different. I understand all that, but I find that very difficult because again, on the one hand, I would think you shouldn't copy anything. Then on the other hand, I also think, yeah, but that shows you what the margins, the profit margins are for the larger pen companies, right? Which again, I realize the gold nib would add some value. I understand all that, but still, you still know they have a substantial margin. So that it's interesting. That I mean, I could go on about this for the rest of the time we have here, but I always find that difficult. I find it a very difficult discussion. Yeah. I hope I put that in a constructive manner. Like that makes sense to you. I hear Graphilo paper is really better than Tongwei River. That is possible, but I've not used it, so I can't speak to it. Okay. What else do we have? Sorry, I'm just scrolling. Lamy 2000 versus Parker 51. Let's say something controversial because that's part of the fun, isn't it? I really don't care for a Parker 51. Now, having said that, am I aware of how historically important this pen is? Of course, it was a revolutionary pen with great inventions and the materials used, the materials, the ink sac, even like, yeah, absolutely. But Picasso was a really revolutionary painter, and his works do nothing for me. They just don't. It's okay. I will gladly acknowledge his masterful skill and how revolutionary he was, but that doesn't mean I have to like what he did. It just doesn't appeal to me. The Parker 51 simply doesn't appeal to me. And when I got it, I thought, this is it. Yeah. Okay. Which is not to say it's not a good pen. It's a great pen. It's just not my pen. So if you were to have me choose between the Lamy 2000 and Parker 51, I would pick the Lamy 2000, which in its own way is also a revolutionary pen, right? Which was very much ahead of its time. So I like that. Yeah. Wettest inks you have used? I've used a lot of inks over the years. I think the Iroshizuku inks are very pleasant. I also want to say they're lubricated, but they're very pleasant wet inks. I really enjoy using. The Konpeki, for example, is one of my favorites. Very nice, intense blue. Would you like to review a Mont Blanc skeleton and a number 12 safety? Oh, those are very fancy. I could. I don't have any immediate designs on procuring either, but I could. What else do we have? For writing experience, out of Mont Blanc, Pelican, Pilot, Sailor, or Waterman, who wins? Who is your favorite pen from each brand? That's a lot. Mont Blanc, Pelican, Pilot, Sailor, Waterman. For me, out of those, I would probably choose Sailor. Favorite ones from Mont Blanc, from everyday writing, I like the 146. The 149 is nice, but it's very girthy. I like the 146 a lot for everyday writing. Pelican, I really like the M800 is a great size, I think, for many people, but I really do like the M1000. I like the M1000 a little bit more than the 149. Pilot, I don't really have pilots, although recently Ellen correctly pointed out I do have an Emperor, so in fact I do have a Pilot, then a Miki version. So then I'm going to have to go for the Miki Emperor. because the only Pilot I own, and that Pilot is not a brand that has ever really super strongly appealed to me. Again, it's just personal. Right? There's nothing wrong with the brand. It's just that you have preferences in looks, in feel, and that kind of stuff. Sailor, I like the King of Pens, a great pen. The 1911, I've had a couple 1911s in my life. The large and the small ones, which I all liked, very nice. I've yet to see a bad Sailor nib. There's a little bit of feedback sometimes, which you like or you don't. It's never bothered me. Waterman, the modern Watermans, I have to admit, I'm not super impressed by. Although they're higher end pens, the Carène is very nice. The Edson was the classic. Those I do think are nice writers, but their gold nibs I think are, in the case of Waterman, this is not always the case. For example, Faber-Castell I think makes great steel nibs. Grafen Faber-Castell has great gold nibs. But the steel nibs from Faber-Castell are fantastic. When it comes to Waterman, I think there is a night and day difference between the steel nibs and the gold nibs. The steel nibs are nice and they will write, but the gold nibs are a class above. And the Carène famous pen, I ended up selling mine. I had the gunmetal, but I think are very nice pens, very, very nice writers. What else do we have? Hello, Jelly Weasel. Yeah, sorry. I'm the reason, people, that we're doing this on Saturday, not Sunday, is very mundane. I have to. I don't have to. I offered and then was kindly taken up on that offer to help someone move on Sunday. That's all. That's the only reason I won't be there on Sunday, because that's in our regular time zone. So that's why we're doing this now. All right. What do you think of Paganini's music? Yeah, I'm not incredibly familiar with Paganini, but I have heard. Okay, I'm not going to waste time trying to figure out what composition that was. I have heard Paganini, and I liked it. Yeah. Wasn't Paganini the one where there were interesting? I don't know if that's an urban legend, but that he was kind of into witchcraft and such. That was, I don't know if that's true, but I thought that was fun. Were I to buy a pen on looks, the first one would be a Tombow Zoom Egg Fountain Pen. Yeah, that's a pretty nice one. What else do we have? What kind of knives do you prefer? We've had a similar discussion, I think, a few weeks ago. It depends a bit on what type of knives. Are we talking kitchen knives or are we talking pocket knives? For pocket knives, I like traditional knives. I don't like tactical. I definitely don't like tactical knives. I like traditional knives with wood scales or horn scales or antler scales, that kind of stuff. I like that better, the classic look, because I find it a bit less aggressive looking, and that matters to me. When it comes to kitchen knives, I have a few global knives. I have a few Kaishun knives. I'm very happy with those. Global is not for everyone, but Kaishun I really, really enjoy. Yeah. What else do we have? Jenny tells us that they say, I'm interesting because there's a lag, so I'm now trying to remember what the context of this was. Oh, maybe the Freudian pens. They say it's not the size, but how you use it. I never heard that. Anyway, most people see resin in their pipe. Yeah, but that's a different type of pipe in it. Hi there. Can you give me some advice? I hope. I always enjoy questions that start like that. Can you give me some advice on helping parents that will just not change? They're not living well. They need to move, but my mother is attached to her stuff and my dad can barely walk. It's a difficult situation, Adam. If I try to approach this from say half stoic, half psychological viewpoint, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to change other people. But you can always change yourself. So sometimes it is a matter of accepting that you will not be able to change other people, in this case parents, but that you can change the way you look at things. And I understand that there may be a physical limitation or need here, that they would have to move. But if they don't want to, then sometimes it's a matter of, well, then you don't. But then there will be consequences, because at some point things may go wrong. If your father can barely walk, then at some point he may fall. But such an event, tragic as it is, can also sometimes force people's hands. And sometimes that means that, okay, now there is no other option. You have chosen to stay here. This is the reality, and now you will have to move, because there's no other option but move. I think what is important is that, I mean, things could be a little different if they become a danger to other people or to themselves. But provided that's not the case, and not the case yet, sometimes it is very beneficial to change your perspective and realize that you can't change other people. But your perspective is up for grabs and can be changed. And maybe that's what you have to do. Accept that you can't change it and that this is how it is. I don't know if that helps, but sometimes that's I think the best way to look at it. Anyone have both the Franklin Christoph 46 Coke bottle and solid ice? I don't know. I just read the question, but I personally don't. Maybe someone else can join in there. The question is, which looks better? All right. Hibiscus is a nice tea. Yeah, hibiscus is interesting. A friend once gave me very interesting bag tea. He's a tea person. He's a tea expert. He gave me blue tea. Now you have red tea. Of course, I have the gold liquor that's common in tea. But that was blue, and there was one that I think had hibiscus in it too, and it was nice. It was nice. Really weird. It's really weird to have, especially if you put that in a glass cup, right? It's really cool because it's blue. It made it very sort of Star Wars. What else do we have? Hello, Zama. I'm just talking about you. That's the tea expert. What is a fair price for a tune-up on a nib for a Nibmeister? That depends on the Nibmeister. They set their prices. That's not a difficult word. They set their prices, so it really depends. I would say that for a tune-up, not a grind, a tune-up, I would expect at least $30 US. Bear in mind that there's not someone who's just going to spend 30 seconds on your nib. That would take time. This again, sorry, I'm not trying to promote that video, but I'm just saying, so as I said, tomorrow that video, that's Sunday. On Monday, the video on Nibmeisters goes up, and this is something I do discuss as well, the pricing a bit and such. All right. I watched your original video of your first Homo sapiens again the other day. You absolutely loved it. You've changed a lot, but because we have been watching you for a decade, we hadn't noticed. Yeah, no, it's true. And my taste in pens and preferences in pens have also changed. So that's absolutely true. I mean, again, it's been almost 10 years. So yeah, that it's very interesting. It's very interesting. You do notice it, especially when I look at my old videos, which I try to avoid, but sometimes you have to. And it's like, oh. For example, some would say that I am a verbose person. But if I look at some of the old videos, I sit there myself thinking, come to the point, Jesus. So yeah. So I like to think I've changed positively in that regard, that I come to the point quicker and make my point faster, but it's been, yeah. Have you tried Krishna inks? No, I have not, for no specific reason. I didn't get around to it. I actually used one yesterday because I had a pen friend came over, And that was I don't know why I'm looking there, but I think I was looking for a notebook. That was a nice ink, so they look very appealing to me, but I haven't tried it. Okay. What do you think is the best flexible pen that you get that isn't ridiculously expensive, like under $200? Vintage pen. You simply cannot get, in my mind, a good modern flex pen that will rival vintage flex. So look for something like, I once bought a Waterman 52.5V. It's a smaller pen, black hard rubber, no fancy mottled hard rubber finishes, and I bought it for something like 20 US. I may have lucked out a little bit, but if you look on eBay, you look well, 14 karat nib, vintage on those Waterman pens are typically quite flexible. You definitely don't have to spend $200. You can if you want a really fancy finish, but if you go for a simple black hard rubber pen, you're not buying it for the looks. You're buying it for the nib and how it writes. You can have pretty good deals on those. But I would do that. Like there's no modern. I know you're not asking that, but I'm just saying there's no modern alternative in my mind that's been even close. I mean, the Mont Blanc calligraphy nib was really not bad, but that's a Mont Blanc calligraphy nib, so ka-ching. I like the Dutch-Danish comparison. As a Dane, I've always found the Dutch language interesting because there are many similar words in both languages. I speak German and English, so I understand a lot. Yeah, that's interesting. It is, and sometimes it's kind of comical, if I remember correctly, and it's possible that I mix up Scandinavian languages now, but I want to say that the Danish word for old, like an old person or old, is and I may mispronounce it, but is gammel, Gammel, which is comical because in Dutch, the same word but pronounced with a harder G, gammel, means rickety, so something that's kind of like falling apart. So if you think of old and you think of that, I don't mean it's an insulting way, but it's just one of those comical things where you have the same word it just means something slightly different, but it's kind of comical. Like an old house would, like, a rickety house would be the same thing. It's always entertained me. So yes, there is. There are commonalities, and even for me as a Dutch person, if I see Scandinavian languages, not Finnish, because Finnish that's different, but Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, or Norse. Now I'm confused. Anyway, the Norwegian, I'm guessing. If I see that, I can also make out some of it. So if I were to read a short news article in such a Scandinavian language, I might be able to figure out a bit of the main point, which is interesting because I don't speak that language, because there are so many words in common. Indeed, with German thrown into the mix as well, it is kind of interesting. Yeah. What else do we have? Which of these pens do you think is nicer, the Pilot Custom 74 SF or the Platinum 3776 SF? I don't think one would significantly outperform the other. I think you would. I mean, both nibs are softer, and because the Custom 74 is a bit bigger, longer, I would probably pick that, because the 3776 is a fairly small pen. It's not very large. I find it a bit more comfortable, but that's just personal. Yes, no, fountain pens are a sport. I agree. Yeah. Do you write your academic paper drafts by hand? I do sometimes, especially when I have to think through things. Then I find it much easier to think through those things as I am handwriting them than when I am typing them. So yes, that does happen. I do it sometimes. Which car do you drive? I drive a very nice and humble Honda CR-V. If money wasn't an issue, which car would you really like to have? I really don't care, because I'm not a car person. So there's nothing that I would really want to have, because it's just an object to me that gets me where I need to be. So I don't have a desire for super fancy cars or any of those things, really. That's just because I'm not a car person. I never have been. What are your views on the Visconti Crystal Dream? I think it is quite nice. Now, is that, let me just do a quick search here. Yeah, no, that's what I thought. I used one yesterday because Forsaid Pen Friend brought one. And it's very nice. I like that what they did with the ink window. It's neat. So I'm very happy to have tried that. Yeah. We are going online too with teaching. Much easier as we teach computing science. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there are certain things that are just easier than others. And I'm fortunate that I'm in a field where online teaching is really not that big a deal and it's doable. There are certain concerns I have, like building community with the students is a bit more complicated. So that I look forward to seeing how that works out. But yeah, that's a good question. Are there 3D models of the brain that you could use for online teaching? Yes, and I found one. So that's probably going to be used as well. So that might help. Yeah. No, that's a good idea. I thought of that too. That we should check that out more. Best demonstrator pen for under €100. I don't know. That really depends on what you are looking for, what type of model you are looking for, because there are definitely good options. Even someone like, for example, the Platinum Cool, I found to be a really nice, really comfortable pen that is really not expensive at all. So there are definitely options, I would say. Do you have any resources on pen making? I want to make my own Grail pen, possibly out of marble or a heavy material. And look at maybe a nib section, plastic feed. Yeah, there are books. There is a book on pen turning. I don't have it because I don't turn pens. But I'm pretty sure if you Google something like pen turning book, then it will come up because I know it exists. Hello. Piston versus converter versus eyedropper in the long run. I think a lot of people really like pistons, and it is neat because everything is just a self-contained unit in the pen. For cleaning, it's kind of difficult to. It can be difficult to clean a piston. Depends on what you can remove or what you can't remove. So it can make the cleaning a bit more labor intensive. I'm not really an eyedropper fan. I have some eyedropper pens like the Emperor, say, or Danny Trio, but that's a one-way shut-off valve, and to me that's just a little different for some reason. I don't know why. A lot of people ask me whether pretty much every pen I've ever reviewed can be eyedroppered. Well, typically they're not meant for that, right? And my biggest concern with eyedroppers is if you accidentally unscrew that pen or it happens in your bag or whatever, you have a serious issue. And I've had a friend over once who was just fiddling a bit with a preppy, and it was eyedroppered, and it accidentally unscrewed the section, and all over the table was ink. It was not a disaster, but I mean, that's the issue with an eyedropper, right? So, have you heard Johnny Cash's version of Hurt? Yes, absolutely. I think it's fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful rendition. Very nice video clip too. It's very melancholy. I always forget what the stress is in English. I don't know why. Houston here. Nice. Only been watching you for a year and love your delivery. Also 1 year in using collecting fountain pens and find it fascinating. Do you collect for function or for design and aesthetics? Well, I do need a pen to write. And that's not meant as that matters to me. Some people don't because they buy pens to put them on a shelf. I don't. Everything I own, I use. So it has to write, and if it doesn't write, it has to be made to write. That's really important to me. As to aesthetics, there are certain pens that I have bought because I really like the aesthetics, but I do expect them to write. There are also pens that I bought really for the function, and sometimes they are matched up very nicely. So, for example, I'll just grab a little sheet of paper. Take, for example, the classic pens LB5. This, in my mind, is a very good combination of both because you have aesthetics that I really like. I like the size of the pen. I love this material. It also has a cross-point nib. If you've never seen a cross-point nib, let me show you the difference between a regular nib and a cross-point nib. Here we have a random fine nib on an Omas Grand Paragon. Fine nib. Okay. Here we have the cross point nib. This is not my best handwriting, but I'm trying to not take up too much of your time. There's the cross point. That's the difference. So that's a very special nib in a very special pen that was also limited in a material that I really love. And that to me is, yeah, so it comes together. So it all matters. I have never bought a pen because I think it has collector value or because I think it will increase in value. That's not, I use all my pens. That's what they're for. So I think that kind of answers that. Continuation of that question. I'm a mechanical engineer designing tools in through digital for energy companies. Taking it back to the move back to a pen is kind of interesting, right? Because it is an analog thing, and it just changes the way you do things, I think. Yeah. Suggestions on the best all-around pen for an engineer. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so that's hard for me to answer. I could come up with, but that's not fountain pen. Of course, you have like drawing pens, drawing pens, right? That might be useful, but I don't think I'm the best person to answer that question. Have you started working out of late? I have been working out but not really of late, but just because I wanted to do something. I try to walk a lot. It's been very rainy and a lot of thunder here recently, so I haven't been going out a lot, but it's nice weather today, so I'll be going out. Yeah. Okay. I wish I hadn't done that. Hey, I've been watching your videos for years, and I wanted to thank you for all the content. Also, hi, fellow cognitive science PhD. Nice. I'm about 5 months from my defense. Good luck in your defense. Remember a couple things about your defense before you get in there. 1, do not be afraid. If you find yourself walking through fields with the sun in your face, you're in Elysium and you are already dead. #gladiator. But the serious thing I wanted to say was, I don't know if you are nervous, but try not to be, right? Yes, there will be a committee, and yes, they will ask you questions, and yes, it will be, that's always sometimes can be a bit confrontational. It's a bit nerve-wracking, but it is your day, and you wrote your dissertation, so you are the expert. You can do this. There's no doubt. Try to stay calm. And something that's very important and that people forget is also enjoy it, because for most of us, you get to defend one PhD in your life, right? Not multiple PhDs. So enjoy it. It is a special day. And that's not something to be underestimated, because again, you get one chance, right? There's one time you do that, and it's momentous. So there you have it. All right. Are you planning to stick to academia? I was hoping to, yes. So far, it's going well. But, yeah. What the hell? A Pilot 823 is $100. No, I don't know. I made that up. I thought they were about $100, but I could be entirely off there. No, they're much more expensive, aren't they? Yeah, anyway. You see, that was just an example. I'm sorry. That was probably not an accurate example. I'm sorry. What else do we have? Are there any pen brands that others enjoy, but you yourself have never really been a fan of for one reason or another? Well, in this case, like Pilot is one. People go berserk over Pilot, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm definitely not trying to be mean or anything, but I don't see the appeal in Pilot pens. I don't like their designs. The nibs are nice, but that nib and that pen body doesn't really appeal to me. Which again, that's just personal, right? I mean, I don't want to offend anyone who loves Pilot pens. To each his own. I'm sure I have pens that you would hate, so that's perfectly fine. But I'm not a huge fan of Pilot. kind of the same thing with platinum. I don't really think, no, I don't have any platinum pens. It's not that they're bad pens, they're great pens. And I think the nibs of all those Japanese companies are typically great. It's just not necessarily designs that really appeal to me personally. And so, yeah, that I don't really care for those. Lamy is another brand that I'm not particularly warm towards, not because of anything they make, especially I think their gold nibs, they make some really nice nibs, but I don't like their designs very much. That's just, again, that's just the way it is, right? It's just, again, a personal preference. No hard feelings, no ill feelings toward anything, but no. Is the Parker 51 still sold by Parker? Not that I know of. They did a special edition at some point when it was in existence for a number of years, or had come out a number of years ago, I think. But I don't believe they still offer 51s. But this is, I want to say, the most ubiquitous pen you can find at pen shows and eBay. It's very easy to obtain. And they're solid pens. So unlike with some hard rubber lever fillers or difficult filling systems, it's pretty robust. So often the ones you find are in a working condition. You may have to sonicate the section a bit or something, but you can do all that. I have this assembly line in Parker 51. You can take it apart. All right. What do you think of the work of Daniel Dennett in consciousness? Is consciousness entirely reducible to material processes? Yeah, it's a very complicated discussion. To be honest, I tend to be a bit of a materialist in that regard, and yet, yes, I do think that it's kind of just a, sort of like a brain byproduct where you have hardware, you have software, and software is just created by the brain. It's just a material process, really. I do like Daniel Dennett. I think he has raised some very interesting points over the years. So yeah, no, it's interesting read for sure. What else do we have? Does anyone know of a list of vintage flex nibs? No, I don't. I think this would be a bit of a matter of you'll have to do research. If you want to have... I wouldn't be surprised if there is something on, say, the fountain pen network of people with like the best vintage flex nibs. I don't know there is, but I would be surprised if there wouldn't be. Superb resources on fountain pens are the books by Andreas Lambrou. The fountain pens vintage and modern is one of the older ones that is pretty affordable, and it's a couple years old, number of years old, but it's about vintage pens. They were vintage then, they're still vintage now, right? So not much has changed in that regard. Price is always difficult because they can change a bit over time, but also his other books, like Fountain Pens of the World is a beautiful book. They're expensive books, but they're worth every penny though. They're beautiful photography. Many pens are reproduced life size, so that's also really cool. You can see how big they actually are. There are many other books, but that I found very good book. Another book, if you want something that's a lot more affordable, Peter Twidle's I think it's called Fountain Pens. A thin book, but it's very nice. And he gives sort of a profile of many brands, focusing a bit on not necessarily older brands, but just sort of a compendium of brands and their most famous, most collectible pieces. So that can also be interesting. What else do we have? I would like to add an ST Dupont pen to my recollection. What Dupont would you recommend? I haven't used many Duponts, but the ones I have used have all had beautiful nibs, very smooth, very pleasant writers. So I can't recommend a specific model, but I wouldn't worry about how it writes. So far, my experience has been very, very positive with the Dupont models. Some are very pricey, but those are their limited edition fancy. Their D line and such are I think relatively more affordable, are not limited, and that's cool. They also have one with a built-in USB drive, which is gimmicky but kind of fun if you like that. What else do we have? Do you still own the Danitrio Mikado? Yes. That's right here. It's a wonderful pen. Nib tuned by Mike Masayama. Stellar. And I know this is not the best camera for close-ups, but I think if I hold it here, you can sort of see it in focus. It's, of course, it's reflective, right? It reflects the light, but these are my favorite nibs ever. The design on these is so beautiful. The imprint is just fantastic. I own it. I love it. Aziza hates it because it's very bulbous. She doesn't like bulbous pens, but it's comfortable to me. And the Rushi job on this is stellar. Absolutely stellar. So I really, really like that one. What else do we have? If you were to suggest a pen between the Franklin Christoph 46 large versus the Lamy 2000, which would you advise on and why? Those are very different pens, right, in design, but also filling system. The Franklin Christoph pens are very comfortable, but Lamy 2000, if you want a piston filler, then that's that. So I don't know. That's too different for me to recommend one over the other. Depends on your purpose, how you want to use it. So there's a lot of factors in that, I would say. Both are high quality pens, for sure. All right. How do you react when people ask why you spend so much money on a pen? How do you justify it? Yeah, I know this is an interesting discussion, and it depends a bit on how people ask these kinds of things. When you think about it, there are very few hobbies in life that are cheap, right? Because you get to a certain level, you may have to purchase certain things. Like at some point, I had a discussion with my friend Marco, who was a very avid hiker, but he did like those long hikes for like where you get, I don't know if it's a thing anywhere in the Netherlands, but like these sort of long marches, you get medals, you get things. Anyway, he said, we were discussing the same thing. He had an insane collection, many pens, beautiful pens, expensive pens. And he said, well, people then tell me, yeah, but well, you also do hiking, like you go walking, and that's free. And he said, yeah, but it's not. Like, yes, the walking is free, but you need good shoes. You may need a hydration system. You need a good backpack, and you need good clothes that don't chafe. So that's not free either. So what I typically try, if I feel like explaining that to people, is something like, yeah, but nothing is really free. There are no matter what hobby you do, there will always be a certain cost involved. And yes, pens are luxury objects, and it could be way worse. You could spend $200 on a pen. You could spend $2,000 on a pen. You can also spend $20,000 on a watch. So it's a relative thing, and I fully understand that there would be people who would say, well, anything above $10 is not worth it for a pen. Anything above $5 is not worth it for a pen. I understand that. I respect that, and I appreciate that. But I kind of like to do things the way I do it, I'm just looking at my phone because Carol asked me a number of questions that I thought would be interesting to answer in a video. And one of them was, why are we attracted to expensive pens? And on Wednesday, September 2nd, that one is going to be published. So I will talk a bit more about why would you buy an expensive pen and what's the reason behind it. I'm theorizing about it, obviously, but yeah. Kiyoshi, thoughts on his pens, similarly crafted pens under 150 that are close to these. I'm just Googling this quickly because I have a specific thing in mind. Yeah. Those are the pens that I had in mind. Yeah, I think those are great pens, but those are artisanally made pens, right? Pens under 150 that are close to these, no, I don't know, because again, these are artisanally made pens, so no, I don't have any ideas on that. I've been watching your video since the Visconti, Visconti Traveling Inkwell Caveco Sport Days. Just want to say I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your continued viewership. because that's really nice. People stick around for so long. Have you tried Waterman Inspired Blue? Is it similar in writing experience to Konpeki? No, it's a bit darker, more of a blue-black. Konpeki is a really deep blue, and the Inspired Blue is more of a... Wait, what's Inspired Blue? They keep changing their names. Is that their washable blue? Sorry, I'm sorry. I had the wrong I had the wrong ink in mind. Yeah, that looks like it is somewhat similar to Konpeki, but I haven't tried that one. Sorry. No, I don't know. Pardon me. Have you had a chance to try Amazon's basic fountain pen? No, but I should. That'd be a fun review. I'll make a note of that. In fact, I'll make a note of that right now. With an LB6. I talked to you about how much I like an LB6. Amazon Basic. I'll check it out. Hello. I'd like to recommend a fantastic book for your consideration. Oliver Sacks, An Anthropologist on Mars. Yeah, I haven't read it, but I want to read something about Oliver Sacks. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. I'm going to check it out. Because I had him on my list to things to check out. Do you listen to the Beatles music? No. For no specific reason, but I'm very peculiar in my music. No. Have you ever done, again, this is another matter of, I'm fully aware of their historical importance, but it's just not, this is not music that, sorry, it doesn't do anything for me. Again, it's very personal. It's nothing to do with the Beatles. It's everything to do with me. Have you ever done an unboxing? No, once on Instagram, I got an anatomical model of a spinal cord, and it's behind me. You can see in that corner? Can you see? Wait. Can you see that green thing? That's what's my finger there? That's that model. My issue with unboxing videos, I know they are incredibly popular, but I personally don't see the point. I would rather use a product for a while and then give people an informed opinion about that product than show people, look, this is a box. I will now open it and show you the contents. I have no idea about the quality of these contents because I haven't spent time with this product, but here it is, which is not me judging people who do unboxing videos or who like unboxing videos. I don't see the point in that. Like I can't tell you anything about this because I haven't used it yet, but it was in this box. And that, I don't get it. But they're very popular. So maybe I should do it. In terms of your pen preferences changing, have you found yourself regularly carrying more and more expensive pens over time? Perhaps as taste has become more refined and or ability to pay increased. I definitely have some pens in my accumulation of pens that are expensive. That is true. And as time progressed, I have obtained more pens that are, relatively speaking, more expensive. This is not to say I don't use pens that are somewhat more inexpensive. I have an Opus 88 Omar that I love. I really love that pen. I like using it. Now, why does that happen? First of all, fountain pens can be a sliding scale in price. So we all know that feeling. I'm not going to spend more than $20 on a pen, not more than $50, not more than $100, not more than $500 until you do. And some people never do. And that's really cool. But I was not one of those people. $100 for a pen is really a lot. $200 for a pen is really a lot. $300, but it slides down. Now, too, there are prices that I am unwilling to pay for a pen. No matter what it is, I'm uncomfortable paying for a pen. So yes, I have some more expensive pens now. I also have way fewer pens than I've had in the past. So I think it is a matter of, there's that slippery slope. There's also a matter of a certain sense of exclusivity. But again, I have never purchased a pen because it has collector value. I have never purchased a pen because I thought, you know what, this is going to really increase in value. I should get this. I've never purchased a pen because I thought, oh, there's only 10 of these, super limited. Yes, let's buy this. I've only bought pens because I wanted to have those pens, wanted to use them. So there is that. A final thing, ability to pay increases. Yeah, that for sure too. As you go again, I just said this a couple times now. 10 years have passed since I started to really seriously use fountain pens. Yeah, you move up a bit, you're in career wise, and your salary goes up a bit, and it becomes easier to buy relatively more expensive pens. So yes, the short answer is yes. I think maybe a bit of all of the above. Yeah. The final thing I will say about that is it's also, I have no illusions that I'm in a very, very privileged position in many ways, but especially as a fountain pen reviewer. Companies send me all sorts of pens, and I emphasize again, most of those I have to send back, right? But I get to try them all and play with them. So at some point, I'm just carefully phrasing my words because I don't want to sound snobby or something, but a platinum preppy isn't going to cut it anymore. You've at some point you're exposed to pens and materials, and that's not going to do much anymore. Which is not to say that it's a bad pen. I think it's a fantastic pen and an introductory pen for many people. This is how many people get started with fountain pens, and it is a good pen and it works well. It's surprising what the quality is for that amount of money. But I don't see why I would need a preppy now that I have some other pens that are not exactly preppies. Which again, this is not set out of arrogance. This is not set out of some sort of snobism. But that is how things work. And again, I have sent back almost all those pens that I have reviewed over the years because they were just lent to me by companies, right? But when you do use $1,000 pen, a $2,000 pen, a Graf von Faber-Castell pen of the year I reviewed at some point, it was lent to me by Appelbaum. Yeah, it's different. I'm also not saying I like all those expensive pens. So that's, again, I'm very careful. I'm not saying that expensive pens are better. But I suppose at some point it can become a bit of an issue if you get accustomed to a certain level of luxury. Now, having said that, again, I use an Opus 88 Omar. I love this pen. I don't know where it is. It is here. I love this pen. This is not an expensive pen. It's not. I know it's not cheap. It's not a $5 pen, but it's by no means an expensive pen relative to some of the other pens I own. But I do like it. So to me, it's not a matter of I need to have expensive pens out of some sort of need. If I need to show off, it's not that. But I do need a pen to knock me off my socks, blow me out of the water, blow me. No, definitely not that. I do need a pen to really stand out. And it is true that certain pens at certain prices won't do that. Although again, that Wing Sung 699 that was sent to me, that Pilot Custom A23 clone, it's actually a surprisingly nice pen. I have to be honest, and I do enjoy using it. Very fine nib, but I do kind of enjoy using it. So that's it. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to move me. Let's put it that way. That was a super long monologue to say that. I can see a pen and it can move me. So I'm sorry, but I'm showing you again my LB6. I saw this in DC. I reviewed a brown one that Andy lent me, and I was moved by it. It's a beautiful pen. It's a great pen. I love it. It's not the nib that should be on it. That's a different story. We'll save that for another time. But I love this pen. And there's many others. Every pen I have, and again, it is only about 30. I don't own 3,000 pens. But all these pens, I can tell you exactly why I love them, why I have them, why they're special to me. But I also used each and every one of them. I don't want to be in a situation where I cannot use all of my pens in a year, for example. And I know people who are like that. And I don't judge them. I don't judge them. But I don't want to be in that situation where I own 1,000 pens or something. That would make me very uncomfortable. Sorry for this very long answer. I hope that made sense to you. All right. What else do we have? There was, says Kiara, there was one pen you reviewed with a flex nib that you sprung on purpose to show us that it could be unsprung. I forgot the model. What an asshole I am. Yeah. Springing is difficult though, because once a nib is sprung, you can bend it back into shape, but it kind of remains a weak spot. So you have to be careful with that. I wouldn't go around recommending people to do that, but you can like bend something back into shape. This is one of those things where I now think you should kind of let a nibmeister do that. But yeah, €1 ballpoint pen, quality increase of Mont Blanc, Pelican, etc. Well, it depends a bit. You could have a €1 ballpoint pen that takes the same refills as a more fancy pen. I don't know, €1 is very little, but it depends a bit in the refill for that ballpoint, I suppose. There are definitely very good ballpoint. I mean, my ballpoint, I have one, I own a ballpoint. Okay, you heard it here first. I really like this ballpoint, made by Min-Inch. It's the Excisors because it has a pair of scissors in it. Okay, that's kind of why I kept it, because it's really messed up, but I like it, and I use the scissors sometimes. It is a rollable, even though it has a cap. It's a ballpoint, even though typically that's a rollable that has a cap that comes off like this. But it's a pleasant. This is what I use to address envelopes. So if you ever got something sent from me to you, from my heart to yours, then it was probably addressed with this, right? And it's nice, but it writes well. But I don't need 50 ballpoints. This is a really different answer. Basically, this is an answer to a different question than you asked, but to me that works. Also, what I really like about this pen, just quickly polish it, the clip is so reflective. It's a mirror. That put a mirror polish on that, which is really cool. So Min-Inch, I've reviewed it, the Excisors pen. I think it's neat. It's also very heavy, very solid. It's a cool writer. Like, I like this. Is this as good as a Mont Blanc ballpoint? It's a ballpoint and it writes. So in that regard, I don't need that Mont Blanc bit there. What else? Alain says, I was very happy with my modern pens until Aziza got in my life, and then I started to go down another rabbit hole. Yeah, she has that effect, but I refuse. I refuse to do the vintage pen thing. I just don't. It's just me. What's your thoughts on buying used pens over newer ones? I have actually a couple of used pens. We, of course, in our continued efforts to make language as soft as possible, we don't say used pens. We say pre-owned pens. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying, like, that's. What do I have here? My Yardley Viceroy Grand was pre-owned. My LM1 LB5 classic pens were pre-owned. My Oldwin was pre-owned. My Stipula was Etruria was pre-owned, so I have pre-owned pens. Emperor was pre-owned. My Mikado was pre-owned. Is there a point to doing that? Yeah, because you can get sometimes, not always, but you can get pens at an interesting price. So Mont Blanc is on the market, the aftermarket, a lot. And you buy a pre-owned 146 or 149, and you typically get a good deal. Now, those are pens that keep their value relatively well, but still, you're going to pay less than you pay for a new pen. Are there specific risks? Of course. And if you can't hold a pen before you buy it, can't study it, could be a crack. It could be, so you have to be careful. But I've had pretty good experiences with buying pre-owned Mont Blancs. While I had no idea what I was doing, really, because that was very early on, I didn't receive fakes. You look at the seller, you look at the seller's ratings, and the most important thing, of course, is if the price is too good to be true, then it is. So if there's a Mont Blanc 149 on eBay for $50, then it's not a 149. That's a knockoff. It's not possible to sell a 149 for that price. It's not possible. But if you take all that into account, you can have some really good deals, and you can try out a pen for something that's typically a bit cheaper than buying a brand new pen, right? Often they're also sort of written in, so to speak. So sometimes you buy something that just really writes very nicely. I've had very good experiences with those. Yeah. How many copies of your favorite pen do you have? Just one. I have just one. There was a time I had a couple of Opera Masters, for example, but I've sold all those off. It's unnecessary to me. So I just have one. What else do we have? Oh, overscrolled. One would think it wasn't this difficult. Oh, I really overscrolled. Wow. Okay. Random unrelated question. I've got a Pilot Custom Urushi, and due to an injury, it is currently girthy for me to use for extended writing. Thoughts on getting a custom section made for me as a fix? The best solution would be to just send it to me, and I will take care of it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, why not? I don't know who would do it and who would be able to fit, because you all have to be able to, the nib fits and such, but yeah, why not? What else do we have? Hello from South Carolina. Hello. I always miss Sunday chats. Okay, well, that's good. It's good to do a Saturday once in a while. Nice. What size pen do you recommend for someone developing arthritis in their fingers? Yeah, something girthy. You should try a Legend 16 or something, like 16 millimeters from Ryan Krusak. He makes nice pens, not too heavy, which is nice. And also it's 16 millimeters, so it's quite girthy. It's quite nice. What else do we have? We're slowly coming to the end of this, so I'm just scrolling to see if there are any particularly pregnant questions that need to be answered. Well, that's interesting. There's a preference for slender pens with arthritis. Interesting. I would think of something girthier, but give it a shot. I have a Memento Zero with steel nib. Sometimes I feel it skips when writing in print. I'm unsure what the matter is. Baby's bottom, ink flow, small sweet spot, possibly all of the above, but my first guess would be baby's bottom if it has issues starting up. Again, Nibmeister will easily take care of that, but yeah. Thank you. How do you find ASC pens versus modern OMAS pens? Are they pretty much the same? No, because one is ASC and one is OMAS. This is not meant as a like, no, they are different. I would definitely say they are different. I mean, they use the same materials, but they are very different. The materials may be the same, but the Bologna Extra, for example, has a brass liner, which the OMAS Bolognas did not have. The Bologna Extra is bigger, hence extra. The nibs are very different. The filling systems are different, so I would not say they are the same. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but they are. I would really consider them different brands, and not think of ASC as like an OMAS 2.0. I think Scribo, owned by people from the old OMAS factory, is much closer in feel to OMAS than ASC is. What else? You must have reviewed some Indian fountain pens. So what fountain pens do you recommend on Indian? Yes, I have reviewed a number. Again, index on my website. I really enjoyed the guider pens. I thought were quite nice. But there are many. There are many handmade Indian pens that are very, very nice. But the guiders I really enjoyed. I remember. Yeah. I mean, I remember as really enjoying. Same person with the potential baby's bottoms. It can't be the ink because it's SBREBROWN. Yeah, but even SBREBROWN, like it could sometimes get some nib crud because there is an orange component to it. This is not marketing. I haven't had problems with flow of SBREBROWN. Maybe other people have, but I have personally not. Startup issues, that sounds more like the nib than the ink. Yeah. Send it. Okay, so there's fear of afraid to move the nib and work on it. Send it to a nibmeister. It's going to cost you some money. But this is the point I will make on Monday, you'll get back a pen that is perfect. If you're afraid or nervous to mess with it yourself, don't do it. There are specialized people. I understand you have to send out your pen. You have to pay for it. I understand that. But think about it. You now have a pen that's basically unusable because it keeps skipping. You spend $40 on a nibmeister and you'll get back a pen that is perfect, guaranteed. To me, that would be worth it. And that's not to everyone, but to me, that is worth it. So again, Monday I go into all these details. It sounds like I'm really hyping up that video, but I'm just saying so many people have questions about this. I think it might be of interest to people. Yeah. Okay. Please don't do unboxing videos. Sorry, I just like this. Unboxing is just a waste of time. Well, that's honestly kind of how I feel, but I really love it. I love the vocal nature of that. Please don't. Think of the children. Don't do it, for the love of God. Okay. Well, my dear friends, having done this for another almost 2 hours, we are slowly going to call it a day. There are many more questions, but you remember your question. Pose it again next week. We shall be back. I'm thinking on Sunday, because that seemed to be the day, but that was the day we did it anyway. But as I said, this was not possible this week. Thank you very much for joining me here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate your continued support. I appreciate, this sounds like Dave Canterbury, I appreciate everything you do for my family, for my school, but that's not, I don't have a school, do I? But I really appreciate it, and it's really nice. And I specifically enjoy all of you who said that you've watched me for such a long time. I don't take that lightly, and it's really an incredible honor that people have stuck with me for so long. And that's really, really neat and amazing. And I can't believe sometimes that there is that incredible loyalty and that viewership, which is very, very heartwarming. So thank you all very, very much. I will say this again because I say this every week, and I do like to point it out. I do get the question of, is there anything we can do to support you fairly often? Yes, there is. Patreon.com/SBREBROWN. You can support me for a certain amount of money. Not a month, but you just sign up for a certain amount of money per video, and then I get that payment for that video. And this can be as little as $1 a month, and you don't have to. And I love you just as much if you don't or if you can't. But I'm just saying, because again, I get the question, what can we do to support you? That is something you can do to support me, and that's it. We should do a giveaway of some pen, I think, at some point. Anyway, having said that, y'all have a good Saturday, whatever is left of it, depending on where you are. I'll see you again soon. I hope this was useful. I'm glad to see you later, as some guy says. Thanks for joining. Bye.